Welcome. This is an explanation video by the REC Code Manager to provide further context and guidance on the Safe Isolation Provider role, also known as SIPs. So in this video today, we're going to be talking about some of the key terminology you'll see under the Retail Energy Code regarding SIPs. We'll talk a bit more about the history and context of the Safe Isolation Provider role. We'll talk about your obligations under the REC as a SIP, and we'll give you some guidance on where you can find further information and further help regarding the SIP role. So if we start by talking about some of the terminology you'll see under the REC regarding SIPs. So as you'll see under the REC, or Retail Energy Code, we do love an acronym. So the first acronym I want to talk about is the Meter Operator Agent, or MOA. So the MOA is appointed by the electricity supplier and is accountable for all of the metering services for that meter point. So that includes the installation, replacement, repair, and maintenance of that metering equipment. Essentially, MOAs are responsible for managing the portfolio and sending related market messages to other industry participants. In terms of the actual physical metering work, that's completed by the Electricity Metering Operative, or EMO. So the EMO is qualified to undertake the installation, replacement, repair, and maintenance of the actual metering equipment. Very often, the same company will have a MOA and EMO role, but equally, the MOA may choose to appoint a completely separate EMO to do the physical work. So the MOA is responsible for managing the meter point, and the EMO is responsible for doing the physical work. Recently, we also introduced the role of a Safe Isolation Provider, or SIP. So the SIP is able to contract with the owner of a meter point to undertake energization or de-energization, and they also have to send the relevant market messages. So the SIP is able to contract for this work. However, in order to perform this work, there must also be an accredited EMO, or they must subcontract out the physical work to an accredited EMO. You may also see some reference to R0064. So that is regarding REC change number 64, which was to create essentially to split out the old electricity meter equipment manager role into two new distinct roles, so MOA and EMO. So prior to June of this year, the MOA and EMO role were combined, and now they've been split out. So you may see some older references to the meter equipment manager, which used to mean all metering parties, but now it specifically means the metering parties which own the portfolio and manage the portfolio of meters. So the MOAs and the gas equivalent of that would be the MAMs. So if we move on then to talk about the history and context of the SIP role. So there was an issue for some meter equipment owners where they did not have a direct relationship with the supplier. This might be because, for example, they own a building, however, lease it out, and the tenant is the one who has the direct relationship with the supplier. Therefore, if the meter owner wanted to get some work done, such as install an EV charger or an isolator, it would sometimes be difficult for them to engage directly with the supplier and their MOA to de-energize and re-energize the meter points to make this possible. So in order to facilitate this work being done, even when the meter owner didn't have a direct relationship with the supplier, the CUSA and REC updated our code to allow any MOA to be responsible for completing this work and could do so independently of the supplier. So any qualified MOA would be able to de-energize, re-energize the meter point when using an accredited EMO, and could then send some relevant market messages afterwards to inform the supplier of the work that's been completed. In order to facilitate a more fair and competitive market, the REC also decided to extend this new role of SIP so that EMOs could also qualify for it. So you didn't just have to be a MOA. Essentially, anyone who is qualified as an EMO to do the physical energization and de-energization work can also apply to become a SIP and contract directly with the meter owner and then send relevant market messages afterwards. And you'll also see some other videos and other guidance which relates to how you can qualify as a SIP. We should also make clear that the SIP role isn't just under the REC, it's also under DCUSA section 2H. And also, in order to operate as a SIP, you'll need an MPID entered in the Balance and Settlement Code BSC's market domain data. So if we move on now to talk about some of the requirements that SIPs have under the REC. So under the REC, we have a series of different schedules which outline the different obligations for different parties. One of these, Schedule 14, is specifically related to metering operations. And in Section 21 of this schedule, it talks about the end-to-end business processes that SIPs need to follow. This includes communication with industry, such as communicating to the supplier that the work has been completed. And it also involves communication with, for example, DNOs if there's a safety issue whilst the SIP or the EMO is on site. So additionally, we have the Consolidated Metering Code of Practice, COMCOP, formerly known as MACOPA and MOCOP, which outlines the minimum requirements that apply to the installation, operation, and maintenance of the metering equipment. So Schedule 14 is more about the actual end-to-end business process and who needs to be communicated or who needs to communicate with certain market messages. And COMCOP is more about the physical safety requirements that the operatives have to adhere to whilst on site. As well as these two schedules, each REC party does have wider obligations under the REC code. Some of those are outlined in the REC main body, and depending on the roles that you have under the REC, other schedules might apply to you, such as Schedule 12, which is around how you safeguard access to REC data. So if we move on to where you can find further information and further guidance on the SIP role, we have a REC wiki on the REC portal, which has dozens of very informative and helpful help articles. Specifically, there is an article on SIPs, which includes an explanation of the SIP role. It talks about the change history, which led to the SIP role being introduced. It has a summary of the qualification requirements for SIPs, and it also has a frequently asked questions document. Additionally, you can reach out to your operational account manager, OAM, for further guidance, and they're your front line to answer questions and provide guidance to assist you in meeting any of your REC obligations. You'll be assigned an operational account manager after you raise an application to the REC and you become acceded as a REC party. So we also have a REC service desk, which you can ask any questions or queries regarding the REC. So you can access the service desk either via the REC portal or by sending an email to inquiries@recmanager.co.uk. Finally, we're also going to be releasing 3 other videos on the qualification requirements for SIPs, and this will include if you're currently not a REC party, it'll include whether you're an EMO, and there'll be a video as well for if you're already a MOA, and that could be if you're a MOA and an EMO, or a MOA and not an EMO. Those videos will provide tailored qualification guidance for depending on what type of party you currently are. So thank you very much for listening to this. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any further questions on the SIP role. And if you are applying to become a SIP, I look forward to receiving your application.